So Trump and, of course, the United States is looking at Greenland like it's a piece of meat. They're looking at it as a possibility to gain resources, and the justification is that it's essential to the security of the United States. Now, this kind of rhetoric and kind of justification that is used in order to justify total colonization or an invasion is something that is so transparent, and yet at the same time, to a sociopath, it's also true. That let's just look at the Third Reich. The Third Reich used, of course, emotional manipulation as a way to justify the worst heinous crimes within human history. Some of the worst heinous crimes. And the justification used is that it's to defend their own ethnic identity, their own Aryan people. In order to do this, they had to wipe out different ethnic groups that were not part of their in group. Same as what Zionists are doing with regards to Gaza and the complete ethnic cleansing at the very best, at the worst genocide. And so this justification used by Trump for their own security, for their own national strength, making America great again. It sounds good, but that's you have to understand that nationalism and the centering of one's identity at the at the expense of another identity is the original sin. It's the original. It's the fulcrum. It's the foundation of the ignorance and the foundation of the worst of humanity. Because ultimately, nobody chooses where they're born. Nobody chooses what ethnicity they're born into. Nobody chooses what religion they're born into. What kind of the affiliations that the parents have. And so nationalism therefore makes no sense because you do not choose to be born in a certain nation. And a lot of people who are, hardline nationalists, they often refer to the ethnic identity of the nation. This is why the argument of white flight and white nationalists, for example, or nationalism descends into ethnic racial lines, and the purity of the nation is determined by the ethnicity of the people, because it is down to these intrinsic factors that make you great, that make the nation great, and it's the intrinsic factors and what they believe are what makes the nation great, and this is how they justify it to the working class, to the people who are not necessarily doing so well, in order to really do the bidding of the ruling class. And so you can be a complete failure in your own life, and still have a sense of pride within yourself because you are born of the right ilk. And so but the people at the very top, the Trumps of the world, the Netanyahus of the world, these people rely on emotional manipulation in order to justify doing the worst and most heinous things imaginable: genocides, ethnic cleansing, illegal invasions, you name it. And so what's happening right now is that the international sovereignty and the respect for international rule-based order is now being completely thrown out. The United States could never, make an argument that they are trying to free people from tyranny. Let's not forget that Trump himself is a big fan of Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He's a big fan of Putin. He said many respectful things of Putin. He respects a strong, in this case, authoritarian leader often. And so for him, the issue of a dictator in Venezuela is not a concern from him. The real issue is the oil. It's the oil, baby. And so, in his mind, he had to wait until 2026 really to make America great again, especially after the liability of investing in the Middle East, where he's supporting and really being at the behest of Israel, and essentially to very little benefit of the United States. He has to find and seek power elsewhere. In this case, seeking power through Venezuela and the oil reserves. The largest oil reserves that are known in the world are in Venezuela, even more than Saudi Arabia. And so ultimately, now what we are seeing, and the crux of this video, is that international rule-based order is gone. China, if it were to take over Taiwan, or the US, if it were to take over Iran, it just follows. The logic just follows. Even though the US already had done this sort of thing before, we should not be surprised. It invaded Iraq on the false pretenses of weapons of mass destruction being in possession in possession by the leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein. And so, but ultimately, it was found out that there was no real grounds to this. It's all a ruse in order to take their oil, in order to justify, maintaining peace in the region, which is essentially making sure that Israel, their geopolitical ally, is happy. It's not being threatened in any way. And now we're going to see Iran, at the mercy of these forces at play. And the world's going to look very different by the end of next year. I think it's going to look very different in the next 5-10 years. We're going to see, things like NATO disintegrate because Trump himself is thinking about invading Greenland, and for their own security, of course, or every tyrannical leader does it for their own security. But is it for the security of people of Greenland? No. And even though, yes, it's right now at this point, it's unlikely that he will invade Greenland because, of course, Greenland is a European country, and it is a kind of a line that the establishment very rarely crosses. They won't invade their own, or rather, won't harm the white hegemony within the kind of system of world politics. But it can, these things can change. Ultimately, nationalism, is based on ethnicity, yes, but in this new world order, in this kind of the United States acts as the capital, of course, of capital itself. It is the center of commerce and capital, and with China kind of rising up, it threatens that. But as I speak right now, the US is still number one, and so that takes precedence over the racial identity. In the case of the United States, in Israel, for example, on the other hand, is that kind of that reality is twisted upside down. They care more about their racial supremacy and their kind of their ethnic kind of foundation, and that will and every kind of thing that is done in capitalism, or rather is done in the service of this ethnic identity. But obviously this is more nuanced. At the same time, Trump, Netanyahu, all these leaders in the West that purport to be about democracy, justice, these are all talking points in order to put the wool over your eyes, in order to do another Iraq war invasion. These are all lies. Do not believe what they're telling you. Just look at the evidence. Follow where the money lies. Anyways, more on this in future. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.